to welcome to the program an old friend, a guy that I've worked with for a long time. He's an extremely talented political operative. He's the man behind almost everything that you see regarding Glenn Youngkin these days, and we've seen a lot with Governor Youngkin. You recall the Secure Your Vote Virginia effort that we've talked a lot about on the program. That and a lot more we want to talk about with Dave Rexrode. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Listen, pal, you're staying really busy.
You know, after 8 years of the RGA, I thought I'd take a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
You know,
Not the case.
See the kids a little bit, maybe enjoy a little bit of a vacations. And now I am in the middle of what could be a $150 million state legislative fight in Virginia this year. Not exactly the vacation that my wife and kids had thought I'd be having after 8 years of the RGA.
It seems like if anything, you ramped up the volume.
Ramped up the volume, but I'm not having to. I just drive to Richmond now, as opposed to drive to Reagan and hop on a plane to some faraway state every week.
Yeah, well, your RGA hat clearly off at this point. You
Yes.
get to focus on your great home of Virginia. But I want to start with the Secure Your Vote Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a lot about it on the program. Obviously, a lot is needed for the Republican Party nationwide to try to figure out how to close those early vote gaps. Governor Youngkin stepped into the breach and had an incredible introduction to Virginia voters about the importance of getting their vote in the box. And you guys have made a big initiative out of this.
We have. And look, the governor, as your listeners and viewers know, his background is in basketball. Mm-hmm. You know, he went to Rice. It's a big part of his life, and he views this as a basketball metaphor. And for too many years now, our party has basically been sitting on the bench. Tip-off has happened. Our players are sitting on the bench watching the Democrats run up and down the court making free baskets, uncontested baskets, and then we roll around and 2 minutes left and we're down to points and we get mad that we haven't been playing the game.
Start bombing threes.
Exactly, because we haven't played by the rules from the tip off until the buzzer sounds. And so we wanted to take a different approach this year.
Yeah.
And we decided that we had to tell voters, you've got to get off the bench, you've got to get in the game, you have to participate. There are 4 ways to do that. You know, we don't care which 4 ways you do, but you've got to trust that if you get your vote by mail, it's going to count. And so through the website, secureyourvotevirginia.com, you'll be able to track your ballot to make sure it's received, that it's processed, that it's counted. We're obviously pushing people to early vote because we can't, as a party, continue to try to make up for it just on Election Day. We lost too many races last year in 2022 because we didn't have that full operation across the country. And so we have to fix that this year.
And it takes a lot of the subjectivity out of it, where you can focus your resources on groups who haven't voted, right? I mean, if you can check and track your ballot and know who's early voting, you're not just sort of blowing resources on a whole population that has already put their vote in a box.
Exactly. And look, I mean, we're all fiscal conservatives. The more we can save and not have to send you 5 mail pieces and 15 text messages, that saves resources to put someplace else. And so from a fiscal side, it's a great advantage for us as well.
Are you guys getting good feedback from Virginia voters on that?
Look, so far, the signups to the website have exceeded what our expectations were. We've worked with all parts of our party to understand the process, to engage in it. So we really haven't had any real pushback because they understand that we just can't ignore this. We've lost too many elections because we've ignored it. So it's a statewide effort across the state. Everybody's working it. We've got county fairs and parades where we're handing out flyers with QR codes, asking people to sign up. And so far, we've been thrilled with the participation level.
No, that's excellent. Well, it's a model for everybody else to use. That's no question about it. I mean, if you can get, which is a bluish hueing state, and Governor Youngkin sort of shocked the world with his victory over Terry McAuliffe, if you can get that to start performing in a purple or even reddish hue, boy, anything's possible, right?
Everything's possible. And look, we brought in the best. We brought up Governor Kemp's team, who I watch very closely. I funded a big portion of that effort last year through the RGA. We brought them up. Obviously, my role at RGA, I saw 36 races last year. What worked, what didn't work. So we kind of put it all together, take it to the next step. And then look, once this election's over with, the governor wants to share it with everybody. This isn't something that's going to be proprietary. He wants every Republican across the country to see this is the path to do this. We've already talked to the RNC and kind of filled them in on what we're doing as they kind of build out their bank the vote effort. We're seeing some of the things that they're doing are very close to what we've already started running there, which is good to see.
Great.
And so we want everybody to see this as a program to execute as we prepare for 25, 24, 25, and obviously 26 as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the most impressive political sides of Governor Youngkin is what you just said. He's focused on the party building aspect of that, and that includes putting a good product on the field. And I know you all have been deeply involved in ensuring you're recruiting and then supporting candidates in a primary who can get the job done.
Right.
Which is important.
Look, again,
aspect.
it goes back to what I said. The governor views this, he's a basketball guy. In order for us to win, we think we have to have three components. First, we have to have, the players on the court that are prepared that have the skill and the talent to win. We have to be able to play from tip-off to the buzzer, following the rules. And then we've got to have the crowd into the game. And so if we have all three of those aspects, then we've got a great opportunity to be successful. No, these aren't easy. This isn't.
I mean, it's still Virginia.
It's still Virginia, and these aren't slam dunks. I mean, you're looking at in the Senate, we've got 7 seats. The governor won 3 of the 7. Our Republican congressional candidates lost all 7 last year. In the House, there are 10 toss-ups. The governor won 7 of them. Congressional Republicans lost all but 1 of them. And so, this is still a tough fight, but we've got the candidates we needed. As you mentioned, the governor, we weighed in on primaries.
And you went 10 of 10, if I'm not mistaken.
We went 10 of 10 because, look, if we don't have the right players on the court, you can't win. And we saw that a little bit in 2022.
A little bit.
It wasn't necessary the night we were all expecting, and I think a lot of that was, we didn't necessarily put our 5 stars onto the court.
Yeah.
And we
got a couple of McDonald's All-Americans sitting on the bench. That's not great.
It's not great. And so when we looked at these races this year, I'll use the Senate as a great example. We have 7 races, and we went and said, who can win these races? We end up getting 3 women as our nominees, a teacher and OBGYN.
Yeah.
We recruited an African-American naval officer to run in Virginia Beach. We have a Hispanic small business owner in Loudoun County. We recruited 2 law enforcement officers, one of whom worked for both Obama and Trump, fighting child prostitution. Those are our nominees because they can win.
Yeah. And you're not trying to jam a square peg in a round hole. Right?
No, and
these are people that reflect their communities.
The communities, they can communicate, and they have teams around them that know how to win, that know how to execute races.
It's just kind of music to your ears.
It really is. And I love the basketball analogy because at the end of the game, there is a winner and there is a loser, and there is definitely a premium on a commitment to victory. And you mentioned $150 million. I've never... For a midterm in a state, like, that's got to be some kind of record in Virginia, especially. Right?
It is. I mean, we're going to be outspent. I mean, the governor's doing.
That's even wild.
The governor's raising a lot of resources, and we're our candidates are raising a lot, and there's outside groups coming in. But Soros dropped $250 last week alone.
Yeah.
We're going to be outspent. Massively, and for us, it's do we have the resources, and which is why we're doing Secure Your Vote Virginia, because we know we can lock in those voters.
Yeah.
If you look at our election, we did some modeling, and look, we're running a gubernatorial level data project for these House races.
Yeah.
And Senate races. The governor's data teams come back. We've refreshed everything. We're using AI. We're using modeling to tell these voters who you need to talk to. One thing we found is there were 505,000 people who voted in 2021 who, like the governor personally, approve of his job performance and want a Republican candidate that will pass his initiative that skipped the 2022 election.
That's unbelievable.
Man.
Where, we could have almost flipped the 10th. We could have almost flipped the 7th.
Well,
if those
it's so
folks
funny
had come
about
out.
that, because historically you think of off-year elections, 21 versus a midterm in 22. Historically speaking, the volume of political information is so much that you get higher turnout no matter what. And out of that particular segment, you just didn't.
They just didn't show up. And now, part of it, they're all in the Northern Virginia media market, and it's different. Northern Virginia is a little bit different than the rest of Virginia, and frankly, the rest of the country.
Yeah.
But when you have 500,000 people sitting at home, that's an opportunity. Look, for us, again, it goes back to the basketball analogy. We need the crowd support. We need Duke, Carolina, not Duke versus Davidson. Nothing against Davidson, but we need the excitement. And what we're seeing is the higher the turnout we see this year, the better off we're going to do.
No question about
Which
it.
runs counterintuitive to what the narrative is from the press, that Republicans are trying to suppress the vote. They want lower turnout.
Yeah.
The more people that vote, the better off we do. And so we're trying to really drive that in all of our races.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is, we've talked about this before too, is the shifting demos within the Republican Party, right? And the one thing that Youngkin has done just exceedingly well and never taken his eye off it is sewing together both your traditional Republican Party voter over the last 10, 15 years with new opportunity in rural and exurban Virginia. And we've seen a lot of Republican candidates across the country sort of shift into one and away from another. And he's had the appeal within the Northern Virginia suburban electorate that frankly didn't turn out for Republicans nationwide. But he also got that sort of traditional quote unquote MAGA base and put it all together. So that, I mean, I think that's what you're talking about, right? Is making sure that you've got all of these folks together fighting under the same tent.
Yeah, I mean, look, what's at stake is remarkable. And I think as we highlight really what the differences are, it highlights how important it is that we win. I mean, three things that we're talking about is that the Democrats stopped the governor and Republicans in Richmond from doing. First, they want to pass a bill that if you are a drug dealer and you're distributing fentanyl and somebody dies, you should potentially be charged with murder.
Yeah.
And Democrats said, no, we're going to protect the drug dealers.
Outrageous. I mean, there's just
Rough.
how is that even?
How is that? But that was their talking point on it. Second, we said, look, if you are a minor and your minor has access to TikTok or some of these other technologies out there, they shouldn't be able to capture a minor's information and sell it to anybody they want without restrictions.
Right.
Democrats said, nope, we're gonna stand with big tech. You can take their data, you can sell it to whomever, whatever website to source it, you can do it. Or third, I mean, the most egregious one is when Democrats had complete control, they've decided to tie our environmental policies to what comes out of Sacramento and San Francisco.
It's just wild.
And so they passed a law that we tried to repeal that says in a few years, you can no longer buy a gas-powered car or truck in Virginia. The only option will be electric vehicles. And that Californians get to dictate our energy policy in Virginia. We tried to repeal it, and the Democrats said, nope, we're going to let Californians determine our economic interests.
Just
I mean, that's what's at stake.
Loaded rocks into their backpack and are dragging it around. I mean, is just, those are three unbelievable issues. And then the other issue that Youngkin has talked about eloquently, and I think is, arguably a huge part of why he was elected in the first place, is education and making sure that people understand that a Republican governor has got positions that stand in stark contrast to what we've seen out of the Democrats that were highlighted through COVID and everything else.
Look, I mean, for so long, too many candidates in our party just wouldn't touch the education issue. They were afraid of it. And the governor leaned in and said, we can all agree we want higher academic standards for our kids. We all believe we need the best teachers possible. But there has to be some accountability. There has to allow parents to be involved. I think, Terry said the quiet part out loud, but that's what they believe. And now you see some of the backtracking on this where, the teachers unions are saying, oh, well, we really wanted the students back in school. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. I mean, Virginia kids were out for almost a year and a half.
Yeah.
And that's learning loss it's going to be tough to make up. I mean, that's a generational shift. And now they're trying to come back and say, oh, no, we wanted them back right away. No.
I mean, it's hilarious nonsense.
And so to the governor, I mean, he said, we're going to tackle this issue head on. It's a way for us to win voters over because it's the right issue. It's getting parents involved in their kids' education. We saw that loud and we're seeing it. And frankly, it's the number 2 or 3 issue in all of our target districts because parents are, for the first time when they were home, they actually got to see what their kids were learning through Zoom.
Yeah.
And it wasn't what they thought their kids were learning. And so they've become much more engaged, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Here's one of the things I just love about Youngkin and the work that you're doing, Rexrode, on this is, for a lot of people across the country may not realize, you get one term as a governor, one consecutive term. So you get your 4 years. And not surprisingly, an awful lot of his predecessors start looking around. A couple of years in, they're not as focused on what it is that they ran for, and they start sort of entertaining other offers. Youngkin, despite the fact that everybody nationwide is constantly talking about him as a presidential candidate or this or that, you're doing what you're doing, focusing on the job he was elected to, trying to get reinforcements so he can have a productive final couple years of his term. And that ain't easy when you've got all the atmospherics and noise going around.
It is. I mean, he's been laser focused on this. You're the first person that's ever said to me that that people are trying to recruit him to do something else. That's news to me.
Isn't that something?
That's something.
Yeah.
No,
I get zero inquiries.
none at all. But no, he has been laser focused that this is what his priority is. I mean, that's when he reached out to me after I left the RGA, he's like, look, I want you to come down and focus on these House Senate races because I did it a decade ago for Bob McDonnell.
Yeah.
He's like, how'd you flip the Senate and gain seats in the House a decade ago? So I just have a lot more technology now than we had a decade ago. He's like, this is our focus. This is all I'm focusing on. And yes, I mean, the media inquiries are quite often, but I mean, a couple weeks ago or last week, you obviously had Governor DeSantis and Tim Scott at the Iowa State Fair and the governors down at the Salem Fair, working with candidates. And you've got, Governor Haley and Governor Christie doing town halls in New Hampshire, and Governor, Youngkin's doing Parents Matter town halls in Prince William and Fairfax and Loudoun.
Yeah.
He is solely focused on Virginia because, to your point, in early 2021 when he was running for governor, I'm from Virginia. I know the state, and I met with all the candidates. Said the good news is, the ED of the RJ is from Virginia. The bad news is, I'm from Virginia. You're not going to be able to BS me on whether or not you can win this race or not. And at that point, look, Virginia had not elected a Republican statewide.
No, you could see why you'd be skeptical.
Yeah, very skeptical. Right. The last statewide win was in 2009.
Yeah.
This is a state that has just not only gone blue, but hard blue.
Yeah.
And that in the matter of, 2 years, we could have, the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, Republican House, Republican Senate, and have gained seats among our congressional delegation heading into 2024 where, we may have one targeted congressional race open and the opportunity to potentially flip our entire congressional delegation in a matter of 3 years. I mean, that's a lot of improvement in a state that, hasn't been a battleground really since 2012.
It really is. And it doesn't just happen by fiat. I mean, you guys have worked for it little by little, year after year. And just like we were talking about, we talked a lot about the state races, but you just mentioned on the federal side, next year with the midterm, there's a chance to maybe make a pickup for Republicans in this Abigail Spanberger district. How do you handicap that race?
Look, it's a pure toss-up district, and if you look at our maps this year, within that district are 2 targeted state Senate races and 3.5 targeted House races. And so
you're going to get a lot of data out of it.
We're getting a lot of data out of it. Everything's going back into the EcoStream. So everything we collect is going to be back into the RNC system, and it'll be available for all of our candidates, for the next few years. But you're going to be able to see on the ground the ground forces that's going to be built up by these candidates because we're investing in door knocking and phone banking and volunteer recruitment. And so you're going to have built up a very large and active army in, Prince William and Stafford, where those have been struggling areas for us in recent years. And so I think heading into that, there'll obviously be a primary. I don't think we'll get out of it quite as clearly as we did in House races this year. But I think it's a phenomenal pickup opportunity for us. And again, that's another seat that we can certainly use to increase our margin in the House, but have an impact. And I think Abigail Spanberger is looking at running in 2025. That's obviously not something we need to focus on until we get through Election Day 2023.
Right.
But, if we can flip that seat, it does kind of ding her a little bit as we do head into that 2025 election cycle.
Look, this is what party building looks like and sounds like, right? So for those of you across the country not in Virginia, these are the questions you ask governors and you ask senators and people who have responsibility of party building around them. Are they doing these things? Because it does take an incredible amount of commitment in addition to governing. And we've seen so many states just sort of drop the ball on this. Yet some states, what you're doing in Virginia is just blows my mind. Awesome. You've seen Governor Reynolds do it in Iowa over the years, but there's an awful lot of states where people think that you just sort of get elected and, then you can go around and cut ribbons and kiss babies, and then everybody will be just elected by fiat out of your popularity, and it just doesn't work that way.
No, and look, if you go back and if you want to look at, presidential politics, the states that typically are the battlegrounds that we win are where you have a Republican governor with a strong state party.
Yeah. That's 100% right.
And because at the end of the day, it's that state parties are really an apparatus of the governor, and their ability to turn out voters and build enthusiasm and excitement has a major impact when it comes to the federal races as well.
No, it's just I can't say enough good things about all of this. Dave, tell me, if people want to follow along, if they want to contribute to the effort, if they're Virginians and they're just sort of want to even move bodies and help you deliver lit, where do they go?
Sure. So if you obviously our ABEV efforts, secureyourvotevirginia.com or spiritofvirginia.org are the two organizations where you can go to.
Well, he's the chairman of Spirit of Virginia, and he's a very big deal and a very talented operative, and I appreciate your time here today.
Absolutely.
Dave Rexrode, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us on.